Alright, hello and welcome to another video log. Today I'm going to talk about geometry shaders, a really crucial part of the pipeline. We just covered them last week, kind of excited about them. I haven't been able to implement them yet. I've been working a lot on my GDW, getting it ready for the level up judging thing. Yeah, but geometry shaders are an interesting part of the pipeline. They're after the vertex shader, so actually let's go Control A. Alright, so brushes, we have a vertex shader, and then it goes to the geometry shader. Just call it G. So, of course, we've all done vertex shaders, and what it does gives an X and Y, a Z, and a W in, like, put into screen coordinates, right, into NDC. And then it gets sent over here, so you get X, Y, Z, W. But what the geometry shader does is take in these X, Y, and Z and then starts making primitives from them. That's exactly what the geometry shader deals in, primitives. And primitives are, squares, lines, dots, and triangles. I think those are kind of the main uses here. You can add other parameters and you can do really cool stuff with them, but for the basis of this, let's just stick with these simple primitives. So what can we use this geometry shader for? Well, one thing is scaling. So let's say we have this box here, right? It's this size, and we want to make it bigger. Well, we can't do this in the vertex shader, and we can't do this in the fragment shader because you can't explode pixel fragments. That's just weird. And with the vertex, I mean, you could take the face normals and then scale them based on that, but what would happen would be you would pull the faces apart. I actually made a shader like that pulls it apart just because I thought it was a cool effect. So what can we do to scale in the geometry shader? Well, what we can do is we can, let's say it's rendering triangles. Actually, let's say it's rendering squares, okay? And we have a square, or cubed, sorry. So this is rendering on a square basis, so let's say it starts with the top. Well, what can we do with this? We can actually scale these points, in an outward direction, because we actually have the face, and we can create the normals based on each vertice and pull them outwards. You can get all the properties of the normals of each vertex based on the face. It's pretty awesome, and pull them outwards, and then you can do that for the next square, the same amount of scale, so it ends up being, and in the end you'll have a bigger cube. Kind of neat. Not really what the geometry shader is most used for. Another thing it's used for is generating particles, because it is so quick at generating primitives, which is particles, right? You can have squares. I keep doing this. You can have squares, and you can have a ton of squares, and they just explode everywhere. Well, what better place than the shader that's dedicated to creating primitives? So what you can actually do is send in points to the geometry shader, and then tell the geometry shader to make a square from each point, and I guess have the midpoint as where the point is. Just explode this up. There you go. All you had to do is just send in a bunch of points, and bam, you have particles. You send these to the fragment shader, and then you texture them each. Unfortunately, that's where you're probably going to see the downside of this, because you're going to have to texture each one individually. There is no set parameter, even though they're all the same size and stuff. Based on the lighting and stuff, you're still going to have to calculate what the color and stuff of the texture is. So that's kind of a downside, but it's still really good to use the geometry shader for rendering particles. I think that's basically all I wanted to cover for geometry shaders. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.